afternoon again, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program, the SDAP program. We appreciate you joining us. At this time, I would like to turn it over to the CDL Division's Chief, Nikki McDavid, for opening remarks before we get started. Nikki?
Thank you, Becky. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, coming through.
Okay, great. As Becky mentioned, my name is Nikki McDavid, and I am the Chief of the Commercial Driver's License Division here at the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration in the U.S. Department of Transportation. I want to thank everyone for joining us today and for your interest in the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program, which we refer to as the SDAP program. You know the government loves its acronyms. So I just wanted to do a shout out to Becky and to Justin for pulling this together, and for the man behind the scenes, Bill Cunane. As you know, and with these opening remarks, you all know that truck driving is not only a profession, but it's actually the cornerstone of our economy and our daily lives. The computer that I'm using to deliver these short opening remarks, the glasses I'm wearing, and the water that I'm drinking was brought by a truck. Every day, millions of drivers transport goods and people across the country, delivering products to our homes and our businesses. And without these drivers, our supply chain would definitely grind to a halt, affecting everything from grocery store shelves to manufacturing plants. And we saw this during COVID. CDL drivers are the unsung heroes of our economy. They spend long hours on the road to ensure that the goods reach their destination safely and on time. So their dedication, hard work, keeping our economy moving forward makes it possible for us to thrive and for consumers to access the products that they need. So again, I'm not going to keep you any longer because I know you want to hear about the program. I want to welcome you all, and I'm going to turn the presentation over to Becky to get us started. Becky?
Thank you, Nikki. I am going to leave my camera off so that you can focus on the slides and the discussion. So during the presentation, we want this to be a very interactive webinar. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Justin and Nikki will both be monitoring that, and we will pause at the end of each section to answer any questions. You can also at that time come off mute and ask your questions if you would like. And if you don't want to do it over the conversation, again, you can drop it into the chat. All right, so let's get it started. In today's meeting, we will cover a little bit about who FMCSA is, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. You will hear me say FMCSA instead of the whole long Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. We will share some background highlights on the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program, which is also known as SDAP. And you will hear me, and I will refer to it as the SDAP program through the remainder of the webinar, just for ease of words. Also provide an overview of the SDAP program, provide a high-level overview of the participation requirements for the carrier, apprentice driver, and the experienced drivers, and provide you with some next steps and resources. So who is FMCSA? We are the government agency that leads the charge in regulating and overseeing the safety of commercial vehicles on our roadways. Our top priority is preventing crashes, death, and injuries that involve large trucks and buses. To help us achieve this powerful and impactful mission, we partner with and work hand in hand with trucking companies, safety and educational groups, much like yourselves here, and state and local governments. It truly is a team effort, and it takes a team. I will now give you a high-level overview of the SDAP program. Oh, and I will mention, if anyone does raise their hands to ask a question, I will ask that either Nikki or Justin let me know, because in presentation mode, I am unable to see the hand raising. All right, so a little bit of background on the SDAP program. Back in 2020, FMCSA got the ball rolling on a pilot program to explore the possibilities of drivers aged 18 to 20 in the transportation industry. We introduced this idea through a Federal Register notice, an FRN. In 2021, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act was signed into law. This act and law included a key piece for FMCSA. It gave us the green light for an apprenticeship pilot program. So staying on track, FMCSA published a Federal Register notice, an FRN, in 2022 to officially announce the SDAP program. And earlier this year, there was an update to the program. The requirements for inward-facing cameras and a registered apprenticeship was removed from the requirement. This opens up the possibility for more carriers to get involved in the program, which has been exciting news, both to us, FMCSA, and to the motor carriers. So we're looking forward to that. Under the pilot program, FMCSA is granting participating apprentice drivers permission to operate commercial motor vehicles, or for short, CMVs, to operate those vehicles in interstate commerce. To be eligible, these drivers must participate in an apprenticeship program with an approved carrier alongside an experienced driver. The program aids to address the current shortage of CMV drivers by creating a pathway for individuals aged 18 to 20 to enter into the industry, and to do so while operating in interstate commerce. Because currently, the current regulation is you can have a CDL, you can obtain your CDL at 18, but you have a restriction. You are restricted to only operate within your state until you're age 21. So that's the purpose of this program, is to lift that restriction for those approved individuals so that they can operate in interstate while under the age of 21. It's also important to point out the last bullet on this screen, where it says the apprentice driver cannot operate a CMV that transports either hazmat, doubles or triple trailers, or passengers. And that is the special configuration, is the double and triples. So a little bit on the pilot program structure. The program does have a set duration of 3 years. So it got kicked off November of 2022, and we have it planned to run until November of 2025. Our target audience includes a diverse representation of motor carriers, apprentice drivers, carrier sizes, and geographical diverse motor carrier locations. I will share with you a little bit later in the presentation a map of the current participation carrier location, so you can have a visual of where we currently have approved carriers located at. We hope to have all states represented soon. Participating apprentices will be granted authority to operate in interstate commerce. Also, new apprentice drivers may be added to the program as current apprentices either age out or leave the program. All right, before we move on to the participation requirements, do we have any questions? Again, please feel free to drop them in the chat or come off mute and ask your question at this time. Justin or Nikki, if you can monitor that for me.
Yeah, nothing in the chat right now, just about getting the presentation over to our registrants. But actually, Max has one question. Hold on.
Yes, that question, I will drop it in. I will drop a copy of the presentation in the chat before the end of our presentation today.
My other question is, so once on, I think it was slide 6, there were the minimum hours that in cab and driving. So
Yeah, would you like for me to go back to that screen?
Well, once they've achieved those minimums, they can operate independently.
That is correct. They will no longer need the apprentice, or excuse me, the experienced driver in the cab with them. They will be provided, once they complete the 2 probationary periods, they will be provided with an additional exception letter that they will carry with them as well.
What's the difference in probationary period 1 and 2? Why is it not 400 hours on duty with 240 driving hours?
Sure,
why are there 2 separate probationary periods?
Yeah, that's a great question, Max. And that's how it was spelled out in the legislation. There has to be 2 probationary periods. And if you look at the legislation, and I'm not sure if it's covered in the slides, there are different things that have to be taught during those probationary periods.
Oh, gotcha.
And before you could go to the second probationary period where motor carriers should be comfortable that driver has mastered those different elements of the probationary period. So for example, during probationary 1, you're supposed to be teaching about driving, lane changes, turning and things like that. And then during probationary 2, you're supposed to be teaching the apprentice driver how to couple and uncouple, how to plan trips, how to do hours of service. So there are things that are spelled out that the motor carrier has to do during these 2 different probationary periods. And that's why it's broken down like that.
And then the apprentices work for approved companies. The companies have to apply and be approved.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And
you're welcome.
And Becky, just based on that question, I think it might be a good idea to drop the Federal Register notice in the chat as well, just in case somebody wants to read that as they're drinking some coffee or
having trouble sleeping one night.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I will definitely drop that into the chat for us. It is not included in today's presentation, as this presentation was mostly focused, to my understanding, to counselors and education and schools. So I didn't want to get too far into the weeds, but that was a awesome, great question. And we're glad to answer the questions like that come up. All right, any other questions?
Nothing in the chat.
All righty, we will move on and dive a bit more into some of the participation requirements. So here is a quick list of the motor carrier's requirements, for both the motor carrier must have and or do, and there must not have and or do's. For the full details, you can visit our website. It is listed here on the screen. Again, we will drop that in the chat and it will be provided in the presentation, the PDF presentation that will be provided. And here's a quick list, a high-level look of some of the requirements for experienced drivers. Again, for more detailed looking into it, you can visit our website for that information. And to add just a little bit of clarity to the last bullet, in case you're not familiar, that bullet refers to the experienced driver's hours of service. It indicates how they should log the time that they are sitting and observing the apprentice driver. It's their observing time as a trainer. But again, these are just some of the high-level requirements for experienced drivers. And here is, again, a high level of some of the requirements for the apprentice drivers. Excuse me. You will notice that the second bullet states any type of motor vehicle. Wanted to point this out because if the apprentice driver receives a conviction for one of these violations, even in their personal vehicle, so they're not in a CMV, they're not in a big truck, they're in their Toyota Camry, the driver receives a conviction for one of these violations, they could potentially risk the ability to participate into the program. And here we are continuing with some of the additional apprentice requirements. As you see, we had 2 slides for apprentice drivers versus the 1 slide for the experienced. So we are monitoring, again, safety is our highest concern. So we do want to make sure that these apprentice drivers are falling within those safety bounds. On this slide, you will notice that the first bullet here indicates convictions in a CMV. I do want to point out that we base these on actual convictions and not the receipt of a ticket or a citation or a violation at roadside. We base this information off of actual convictions. What we will do is we will take a look at the driver's driver history record and look for any potential convictions that show up on their record. So if they receive a ticket or a citation roadside for reckless driving or speeding or whatever the case may be, that may not necessarily trigger us to look because it's just a citation. There are many outcomes that could come. The driver is awarded due process. So we do not look into it until it is an actual conviction and it shows up on their record. We want to communicate to our apprentice drivers to definitely not operate in any of these reckless manners because it could harm their availability to participate into the program.
So, Becky, we have one question in the chat about eligibility, essentially. John asks, is there any way a high school student who may only turn 18 after Christmas of their senior year do this or become an apprentice driver?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you repeat it, Justin?
He's saying, is there any way a high school student who may only turn 18 after Christmas of their senior year? So basically, I guess after they graduate in June and they don't turn 18 until later in December that year, and they're already out of high school, if I'm understanding it correctly?
Yeah, I mean, as long as they have their CDL, they are eligible for the program. They don't have to necessarily still be in school when they get into the program. Does that answer it? You can come off mute and clarify or let us know.
And John also
Yes.
clarified, oh, go ahead, John.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just wondering, how can I'm from Tennessee and work with the high schools and the transportation programs. So what's the mechanism for a high school that has people turning 18, in February, March, and April, and they only got a couple months? Does the program run through the school or does it run through the trucking company?
It's going to run through the trucking company, because the trucking company gets the approval from us to participate into the program, and then they recruit the apprentice drivers.
Got it. Okay. No, that's very helpful. That's what we need to know. So thank you.
No, you're welcome. Nikki, I heard you coming off mute. Did you want to add something to that?
No, you covered it. Thank you.
Awesome. And do we have anything else before I go forward?
No, but I think it's just important that's what we're looking to partner with the school counselors in these different schools that have these programs or students looking to join this SDAP program. I think it's essential for us to collaborate and partner with them. So appreciate the question and the support.
Yes, absolutely. All right, we will move forward. So to discuss a little bit of the apprentice driver participation. So during the participation of the program, the apprentice driver is going to have some additional ongoing requirements in addition to not receiving any of the previously listed convictions. So the apprentice driver, and this is going to go to a question that was asked earlier, the apprentice driver is going to receive, let me back up. They will apply to an approved motor carrier. The motor carrier will send that driver's information to FMCSA for review. We will look at it, look at their driving history record, make sure there are none of those listed convictions. And then we will provide them with an approval letter for that driver. So once that driver receives that letter, they need to ensure they must keep that with them while they're in operation. And they're going to want to do that for both that initial letter, and like we said earlier, they'll get another letter once they complete both phases, both training phases. So they'll get two approval letters or exemption letters. One when they get accepted into the program, and then they'll get a final one that they can carry with them once they've completed the 2 probationary periods. That's the letter that lets everyone know that they've completed the program and they don't need to have the experienced driver with them. But they need to carry those letters with them along with the approval letter of the motor carrier. The reason is because they are going to be operating beyond the scope of what their actual CDL permits. So the drivers, when they are between 18 and 20, they can get their CDL, but they will have a restriction. It's a K restriction that says that they are only allowed to operate in intrastate commerce, which means they're only allowed to stay within their states. They can't cross the state lines and do commerce. So these letters, if they happen to get, pulled in for an inspection, get pulled over for whatever reason, they would provide those letters to the officer or the official who is doing the inspection to show, yes, my license says I have this restriction. However, I have this exemption from FMCSA that says I can operate and be here. So that is the importance of them carrying those letters with them, because we don't want them to receive any citations or adverse actions being placed out of service where they can't operate for a certain period of time or for a certain period. We don't want that to happen. So they must carry those letters with them to prevent that.
I have another question in the chat, Becky, if I can.
Yes, go ahead.
So we have a Jalissa here, and I'll unmute you as well if you want to go further. But do you have any graduates? Do you prove placement after the youth receives their license? So I'm assuming after they complete the program. Is that what you're asking? Take your So yeah, I don't know if you want to address that, but I don't know. Do you mean like after do they stay with the carrier?
Sorry, Justin, are you waiting for that individual to reply?
Yeah, she said yes.
Okay,
So,
okay.
So do you want to like address that? Like, do many of them, I guess, stay with those carriers, or do they help them with placement
So
other jobs?
what we've seen so far is the ones who have completed the program have stayed with the carriers that took the chance on them, gave them the opportunity. They are staying and continuing both after they're 21 and after they've completed the probationary periods. But with that, let me say, so we give John Doe an apprentice exemption letter to operate for Becky Trucking. That driver, that apprentice driver, cannot complete that the 2 probationary periods and then go work for Justin's Trucking, unless Justin's Trucking is an approved carrier in the program. So they would have to. The exception only applies to the particular motor carrier that they applied with for the exception, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I believe so. I don't know if you can unmute yourself, Jalissa, or if that answers your question, but I even talked to a apprentice drivers the other day that actually moved from North Carolina to Wisconsin to take a job. So I'll put it later in the chat, the opportunities, but they don't even have to stay in their own states. They can go to different states. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, and if it didn't, just okay.
Yes, sorry about that. I'm on my phone, so it's hard to navigate.
Yes,
but yeah, you were able. Do you have a number of how many graduates have fulfilled this pilot?
Give me 2 seconds. I can pull those numbers up for you.
And I guess, how have you done your marketing? Because it's the first I've ever heard of this program. And it's been established since, you said 2022, and it's already 2024. So there's, barely, we've got a year left of this program.
Yeah, right. And I will definitely answer that, Julissa. And I have to admit, like, the more people we talk to, the more we learn about the opportunities out there. We were really going hard and really focusing our efforts on motor carriers, right? Getting motor carriers to participate, getting motor carriers to do the outreach to drivers. And then something has opened up for us. It's like, have you all considered schools, high schools? And we're like, oh, great idea. Becky, we can see your screen.
Sorry.
Yeah, like, great idea. So we are learning more as we go along. We are hoping to get more participants. We want this to be a program that we will be able to analyze and do some, do some analysis on the data that we have. So, yep, we're learning more as we go along. But we were focusing our efforts on actually apprentices, 18 to 20-year-olds, and also the motor carriers, and not necessarily going through these programs that currently exists out there.
I think.
Thank you.
If you have any also ideas, I mean, now we're looking at school council, we're looking at conferences, big events, reaching out to schools, emails. So if you have any ideas, please feel free to share us, because we know that you all can help us get this in front of the students. So
if you have any conferences, job fairs, anything coming up, please send them to us. If you would like for us to attend and present or set up some booths or have some discussions with the students, we would be more than glad to accommodate.
That's great. I'm a regional career coach in Montana, and that's exactly what we do is promote training. So this is an ideal training that I'd love to promote. However, again, it only being barely a year left, so that's a tough one as well.
Yeah,
So
the thing. Go ahead, Becky.
I was just going to give the numbers. We've had that have graduated out of the probationary periods and are currently still working with their carrier is 20. And we've had 5 who have aged out of the program, meaning they turned 21, so they no longer need the exemption. But they were 18 when they are between 18 and 20 when they started the program. If that helps.
Yes, thank you. Just hearing some of those numbers, it's great to hear.
I think also, like, if we could talk about, Becky, like, how long do we need for the data? Because I know it's only, a little more. We got like about 18 months left, but is it like 4 months of data or whatever? So if they already have your CDL or how to get it, so we could talk about that, because the program ends November 2025. So we do have about 18 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
And any data and any opportunity that we have to use an 18, 19, or 20-year-old to participate in is going to add to the data that we're collecting and the data that we're going to analyze. So even, and you never know, they might join with the motor carrier that has inter and intrastate operations. So maybe if they're 18 when they go in, and the pilot ends in November 2025, maybe they'll be 19, but maybe that motor carrier can use them in its intrastate in their intrastate operations until they reach 21, or maybe the motor carrier could use them in some other capacity until they are at that level. But yeah, there are motor carriers out there that are willing to work with drivers and willing to offer them all kind of opportunities. So I think the opportunities are endless for these participants.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have another question here. So looks like Ashley asked, are students receiving their CDL first? If so, and are high school students, is there funding available for helping students get their CDL so they can participate in the program?
So yes, they would need to. That is one of the requirements, is they have to have the CDL. And Nikki, I'm going to let you talk on. I don't think
absolutely.
we have any grants for it.
Well, we do. We have our commercial motor vehicle operator safety training grant, and we could talk about that and put a link to that that website as well once we finish this. But yeah, absolutely. There's states offer funds. Like we know about the WIOA funds, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act funding that states provide. So there's federal funding, there's state funding if it's needed.
And there's organizations, I don't want to call one out in particular to show any type of favoritism, but there are organizations out there that are working with us on this program that are looking into and helping drivers find the financial support to gain the CDL as well. I'm not sure, Nikki, if we can disclose that company or not.
I'm not sure which company it is.
Oh, our last counselor session.
Oh, absolutely. I would say yes. Let's get the people here connected.
Okay. So it's Next Gen, is that company. Lindsay, what is Lindsay's last name?
Trent.
Trent. She is the founder of that. She has been phenomenal working with us. She did provide us with some of the emails of the invited for today presentation. So again, the company is Next Generation. Is it Next Generation LLC?
Trucking.
Yeah.
Trucking. Next Generation Trucking.
Perfect.
So there
Just,
are opportunities and programs and companies that are out there definitely to help to obtain those CDLs.
just two more quick things so you can get going.
Yeah.
Do we have the names of any of those grants? Somebody was asking about, like state grants or company grants.
Sure, I will definitely drop that into the chat. And we have to remember also that there are motor carriers out there that pay for training for their drivers. So maybe a motor carrier, depending on, maybe the drivers could ask the motor carriers that are actually listed on our
Opportunities tab.
yeah, on our website to see if they offer training, and maybe the motor carrier can help them get their, CLP first. I'm not sure if they already have their CLP, their commercial learner's permit, and go through training that way. And then they get their CDL, and then they could potentially participate in a pilot. But there are motor carriers out there that offer training, that have apprenticeship programs, not this type of apprenticeship program, but the apprenticeship program that's run under the Department of Labor.
And just lastly, I don't know if we know this yet, it's still early on, but likelihood of possibility of program being extended past November.
That is unlikely. We are bound by our regulations, and our regulations only allow up to 3 years for the agency to run a pilot program. Now, if Congress comes back and says, hey, we want you to run this for another period, then if we get the authorization to do that, by all means, we can do that. But as it stands today, it will commence. And I'm saying that just based on the information that we have today. We don't know what might happen tomorrow or next week or what have you. But as of today, we can only run it for 3 years. And that's based on our legislation, our legislative authority, and based on our regulation. So we're bound by that unless Congress changes it. A great question.
Yeah, great discussion. A lot of good stuff in the chat. So really appreciate it.
Yes. All right, nothing else. I will move on to the next session. All right, so here are some of the vehicle requirements. These are items that the program mandates be installed and operational on the vehicle while participating in the SDAP program. Again, safety is our highest priority, and these requirements help us to monitor those safety items while the operation of the program. You will also notice we have in the first bullet the forward-facing camera listed here. This is different from the inward-facing camera requirement that we mentioned earlier in the webinar that was removed earlier this year. It was on the screen. I didn't necessarily talk about it, but the requirement was previously for a inward facing camera. So the camera faced the driver. Those requirements got removed earlier this year. However, we still have the forward facing camera requirement, meaning it faces the road and traffic. So that is still a requirement on the vehicles. That was froze up. Hold on 1 second. There we go. All right. So during the program, we have been asked questions, and we've compiled the most frequently asked ones to help assist. This slide here shows the top 3 questions that have been asked regarding crashes and injuries. Again, for a complete list of frequently asked questions, visit our website. We will again provide it in the chat, and it will be on the slides. There is on our website, there is a whole section for frequently asked questions. Please feel free to visit that. It can help you answer some questions that you may have thought of, and it may also answer some questions that you hadn't necessarily thought of yet. So we have several frequently asked questions on our website that is available. And here's the map that I was speaking on earlier. This is a representation of our carriers and apprentice enrollment. The bluish colored states have approved carriers and at least one apprentice driver in the program. The yellow states have approved carriers but no apprentice drivers. So we really want to invite students to look at our website under our job opportunities and apply with some of these approved carriers. We are currently working on an interactive map for our job opportunities to have it posted on our website to go along with our alphabetized listing that we currently have. We want to encourage the gray states who have no carriers that have applied at this time to visit the website. So if you are in some of these states, reach out, encourage the enrollment into the program, both carriers and apprentices. Some of the states are dependent on locations. Some of the, they're in close coordination, so the driver may consider going to a different state that is close to work for a company that is approved and into the program. All right, so what can you do? What's your next step? You can, of course, visit our website that I spoke of a couple of times for more details. It's going to have different aspects for outreach materials, apprentice driver information, motor carrier information. We have a ton of information on our website. And again, it is listed here. Help spread the word. Let your students know of this opportunity. I know earlier someone mentioned this was the first time they've heard of this program. So now that you have heard of it, spread the word. Let the students know that there are these opportunities out there for them and encourage them. Like Nikki said early on in in our opening statements, we can't function without our drivers. They get everything to us, from our food to our toiletries. So we need them, and encouragement to join this industry. We also have outreach materials that we can provide you with to share with your offices, your students, display it in hallways, wherever. We have resources, outreach materials that we would be more than glad to provide you with to help share the word about the program. And at this time, do we have any additional questions?
We don't have, let me see, hold on. So one question in the chat, how long does it take a motor carrier to get approved?
Awesome. So yes, we usually, for a motor carrier, we try to have it approved within at least 30 days. Of course, we work as fastly as possible to get them approved quicker. I do not believe we've had anywhere near a 30-day approval time rate on our motor carriers. For the apprentice drivers, we set to have those reviewed and approved within 15 days. like I said, we, even though those are our set timeframes, we work hard and diligently to have those achieved way before those deadlines.
The follow-up is, what is the biggest barrier we've seen in regards to getting motor carriers approved?
I don't know that there's been as getting any approved. They have their requirements of that they must meet. Most of the motor carriers have reviewed those requirements and they meet them prior to applying. So I don't, as far as motor carriers and approval with FMCSA, we haven't seen any huge barriers since I've taken on the project.
And I agree with that. I think the biggest barrier we may have had in the beginning was maybe the volume that we were, the volume of applications that we were receiving, and the different approvals that the motor carrier had to go through, like having to, as Becky mentioned, just this year, we removed the requirement for the motor carrier to have a registered apprenticeship program with the Department of Labor. But since that has gone away, it's been relatively easy for the motor carrier to get approved. And it's just a matter of us verifying the data, making sure that they meet the requirements, and that's not taking anywhere near 30 days to happen.
So somebody asked about, so with the job opportunities, we really went by like where they're headquartered at, because many of these companies, they might be headquartered in, let's say, Tennessee, but have jobs in North Carolina or South Carolina. So we're trying to put where the actual jobs are, which could be different from where the states are headquartered at. So that is kind of a challenge, but I do like the map that Becky has, and we are working on an interactive map, as she alluded to, but that's the issue. Sometimes they have jobs in multiple states. So.
And that's one of the things we encourage. Have the students take a look at our job opportunities that list all of the approved motor carriers. And if they see a company, their portfolio, kind of stands out to the student, have them reach out to that carrier, find out where their operations are, see if there are, they could be, like Justin said, they could be based in Tennessee, but they could have an operation in South Carolina. So have them reach out and any carriers that they think are could be interested, and find out if they do have those opportunities.
Being from Montana, we don't have a lot of resources here. And I just went through your list, and it looked like on your map that you showed that Montana was approved, but on your list of approved, it doesn't say who was approved. And we're a huge state. So how could I find out who was approved and help with that, I guess? Or who applied? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So that is one of the things that we've heard, which is why we're trying to create the interactive map, because our listing, our job opportunity listing, is an alphabetical order. So some of them don't necessarily say exactly what state they're in. But if you would send me an email, and well, come on. There we go. You can send it to the FMCSA team, and I can do some digging and find out exactly what company that is that we have in Montana and provide it to you. But if you just send me an email at that safedriver@dot.gov, I'd be glad to get you that information.
Okay, sorry, I just put it in the chat. I don't mind. So, but I'll also email you if needed.
No problem.
Thank you.
And Julissa, you looked on our website, and it wasn't clear.
I did while you guys were discussing that. And none of the, and again, we're a gigantic state, and so it could be on that list and I don't know it. But again, with like you had indicated, without you saying what state it's from or the corporation or whatever the case, it's hard to know if it's in our area or not.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why that's important. So thanks for, we're aware of that, but when you hear the feedback firsthand, it causes us to maybe even,
Yeah.
move this
And we
type of
gotta,
task to the top of the list when we're trying to, improve the program.
and when you're working, as we all know, with our youth, young workforce, they don't have the patience to
Yeah.
look things up and research if it's not immediate and that it can't be found quickly and concisely. You've lost them. So I know having a teenage son firsthand how that works. So thank you for improving your program and listening to the feedback.
Absolutely.
Hey, so this page does list some resources. It has our SDAP program website, along with the links to our frequently asked questions, the contact email for the program, and then the contact information for our team, which is M. Davis and Company. They help us with the actual applications and the monitoring of the reported data that the motor carriers have to send to us. That's our company that is in charge of those processes. So that is all of their contact information as well. But yeah, again, thank you for participating. We are glad to share the information on the program. We appreciate you taking the time and your interest in the program. If you think of any items that, when you're looking at our website that could help, because you are working a little bit closer and hands in hand with those younger drivers, the 18 to 20-year-olds. So if you see something that could potentially help us in promoting the program, please provide us with that feedback. Drop it into the email. I do look at it very frequently and reply. So all feedback and suggestions, we are taking them and implementing them as we can. So yeah, just please feel free to share that information with us. Also, any opportunities that you would like for us to come and speak or provide you materials so that you can, we would be glad to help you spread the word for us for the program. Nikki, did you want to provide any closing remarks for us today?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Becky. You did a great job. Justin, you too. And I want to again thank all of the participants who joined us today for just taking time out of their schedule to learn about the SDAP program. And we welcome, as Becky said, we welcome your feedback. We are going to depend on you to get the word out there. I don't want to put any pressure on you, but I'm hoping that we will have some participants coming our way just based on your interactions with them. So again, thank you. And we look forward to working with you again in the future.